You're fine, Kathy.
Oh, okay. Kim put me on mute here.
Pardon me.
So I don't know what you all heard, but okay, so we're going to talk about, IN is going to go through and talk with us and give us their definition of emails and alerts when it pertains to the tool. And then we're going to talk about what ACS, what our team considers an alert. And then Richard is going to go through and talk about some canned alerts and how they could possibly work with our business processes. All right, so Bobby, you're up.
Okay, thank you, Kanita. On Friday, there was a concern expressed over what IN considered an alert, and it was expressed to us that ACS felt like alert to them meant a message either being sent from Outlook or received in Outlook in the form of an email, and that's what ACS had defined as an alert in terms of their business process currently. IN, because we work within the Flux tool, all of our alerts and communications are based on the interaction with our software, not between specific individuals outside of that software. So I guess the best example that I would like to give is that I'd like to talk about application alerts, which is really what IN was referring to when we think of alerts. Because everything we do has to be driven from our application, not from Word, not from Access, Excel, or any other external application. It all has to start within our application. So for those of you who have iPhones, the best example I can give you is that when it's time to update your iPhone, you will see a little red circle with a 1 in the upper right-hand corner of your icon. That is an alert. When you are on your phone and someone text messages you and you do not have your phone active and open, typically what will happen is that you will see a brief message pop up on the front of your smartphone, and it will give you either the subject or the person who has either just tried to call you and or leave you a message. That is level alert to alert the user of that computer who is logged into that operating system that based on their login and based on what they're doing right now, there's an alert that applies to them. Conversely,
Bobby, this is Richard. That requires the person to be logged into that system or have that application or operating system up and running in order to receive that message.
and that's exactly where I was about to go next.
Okay.
Because in order for any of these things to happen, one thing is common across the entire board, whether it's your Windows application OS, whether it's your iPhone OS. You as the user have to be present in front of that application in order for that to happen. And that is the key component that we need to discuss today so we can figure out as a group how ACS is going to be provided their alerts. Because from an IN perspective, in order to receive alerts about the application you are working in, you're going to have that application open and in front of you. So with that being said, I'm going to let Richard explain how these alerts actually work within the actual Flux application. And then I'd like to open the floor for ACS to see how we can bridge the gap between your email alerts and the alerts that you're going to need to have within the application as you use it moving forward.
Bobby, this is Kim. I have a question before you turn it over to Richard, please. I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you say that an applicant has to have that actual application open in order to receive alerts?
If you want to go ahead and answer that, Richard.
Yep.
Okay, so just for clarity, if I'm a grantee and I've submitted 2 applications to ACS through this system, I will only be alerted about whichever grant application I have open. Then when I switch over to the other one, then I'll get alerts for that one.
Let me kind of step back a little bit, right? So I think this goes to the crux of emails versus alerts, right? And an alert in Flux is really an internal notification that something has changed on a record. Flux can also send email notifications outside of the system, and those get picked up by whomever they're sent to whenever they're picked up. But in order for you to see the application alert in the system, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a second. In order to see that, either from an internal user or a grantee perspective, you will obviously have to have the platform open. Otherwise, there's nothing, because Flux doesn't reach out through anything other than an email outside of the system. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. So internally, if there are alerts for me, I would be able to see all at one time. I wouldn't have to go into each of my records in order to see the alerts associated with them, right?
I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. But let me go over to the application and show you exactly what I mean by alerts. So this is internally in Flux, when I create, say, right now I have the organization's card open. Let's close the rest of the stuff. I have the organization's card open and the application's card open. If I were to add a new organization by clicking on this little icon right here, and I'll type in Kim's House, and they're a grantee, and we'll just hit save. So we've got this one update at the top of the application, right? At the top of the card. That's an alert that there's something changed in this on this particular card. It's not showing you exactly what changed on there. So in order to do that, you need to refresh it, and then it'll show Kim's House at the top of the stack, right? But that was the alert that a record, that something had changed on that card. If I were to edit, change the sponsor, it's going to alert me again that something has changed on that record, right? And down here on the card, on the in the tray down the bottom, it's going to show there's something changed on an organization record. There's one notice or one alert that something has changed on that organization record. So far, are we clear? Any questions? Any questions there?
Richard, does it show what got changed?
So what I did was I went into the organization card, which is this.
I know you
this
did the partner. Would I be, if you open Kim's house right now under organizations, would I be able to tell what the change was?
You go down into history and hit show history, and so you changed it from grantee to partner.
Okay,
right?
got it. Yep.
But just in terms of what the alert is there's a change in the organization card. Right now, I don't know what that change is, but if I hit update or I go into Kim's card, which is at the top, I'll be able to go into history and see what that change was, right? And this alert over here down in the tray says, oh, if I've got 15 different cards open down the bottom, this is going to say, oh, I've got one change in the organization record that I might need to go see. Right? Now, if we go in on the grantee side, log out, log back in as a grantee or as an applicant, and so now let's go and look at this record here, right? If I were to edit this record here, and save it, it's going to show me, from the grantee's perspective, it's going to show me two different alerts once it's finished doing its thing. So I've got this football shape blue update at the top, which is very similar to the top of the card notification on the other side. And then on the request, I get this one little alert that's showing me, oh, there's a record that's changed in these drafts. And so I can click back here, and so if I'm on this list, I'll see, oh, there was an update, and usually the top one that's had the most recent change. So that's alerting from within the system. You have to have the system open in order to see these types of alerts. An email notification is different, right? So let's log out of here. Oh, and the other thing I want to let you know is that if I'm logged in as a grantee, and the project manager or the program manager is in my record and changing things while I have what I will see these alerts basically notifying me that something has changed in the underlying record, and then I can drill back into it to find out, well, what did they change, and if I have the right access. And we're not giving them access to the history, but we could provide content. In fact, in the change requested section, we have a change requested note to say this is what we'd like you to make changes to. But those are the alerts that notify you kind of something's happening to your record. On the email side, email is slightly different because email goes outside of the system.
Wait, Richard, before you go any further, so in that grantee portal, if the grantee makes a change to their application, when an internal employee signs in, they will see that a change has been made on that.
Good question. So these alerts are kind of time-based. They're really there to show you that something is changing in the underlying record, in the records that you have open, or the records that you're working on. If it goes past an hour or something like that, or you log out and come back in, you're not going to see those alert notifications because the record is just in the state that it's in.
Wait.
If the project manager is in this hospital Espanol record and they make a change in there, there'll be a notice that goes along. There'll be an alert that kind of indicates something changed in there. If I log out as the grantee and come back in, I'm not going to get those alerts because the record is. It's assuming the record is as it's supposed to be.
No, my question is if the grantee makes a change,
mm-hmm.
and now I'm in there as the program director, and I'm interested in the grantee having made that change, will it show up on as an alert to me?
If the grantee is making a change in the record while you have those records open, then yes, you will see an alert with either the yellow banner icon on the top of the card and the little red icon on the card detail in the tray that something there has changed, and you can drill into the history to find out exactly what has changed underneath it. But typically, the workflow goes that the grantee builds their application, submits it to you, you review it, and while you're reviewing it, they're not making changes to it anymore. You've kind of taken it offline from them.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to understand, okay, so we've reviewed, maybe it should be the division reviewer has been reviewing it, and I think I need somebody from the change program to take this up. The reviewer has reviewed it and is making recommendations for changes to happen in the application, which I understand is part of the process, right? Yeah. So if the division's communicating with the grantee, the potential grantee, you know what, you need to update this part of your application to make it better. And the grantee goes in and does that, how does anybody know that change has happened?
Okay, so there's two parts. There's a couple parts to the operational parameters of your question, right? There's the internal working between division and change, and even though division is on the external portal, they're still basically treated as an internal employee. So you're working on the records together, right? When the division person changes the record, and the change person is looking at their list of open records, they're going to see that, oh, this record changed. They'll get an alert on the screen that this piece changed. Vice versa. When the change manager adjusts the record, it's going to show up on the division person's dashboard that, oh, this record, there's a change here, so I need to go in and take a look at it. On the division side and on the change side, you have the history log that you can drill down into during your operational working. We're not making the history available, which is really an audit history of everything that goes on in the application. We're not making that available to the grantee because then they get to see exactly who did what and when they did it and how, and that's going to typically opens up far too many questions from an external perspective as to, well, why did it take you 5 months to get through the review and analysis? So we don't provide access to the history log to the external grantee. When we want the grantee to take some action, then we put the application in a change requested state, and that change requested state has notes that go along with it and directions as to what the grantee is supposed to do.
How does that happen?
Okay.
Well, how do those notes happen? But I'm still missing some step here.
Okay, so the division staff will place in notes, and then they will push the application back to the grantee through a workflow action, right? That workflow action basically puts it in the change requested bucket, which is here for the grantee. I don't have anything in there right now, but puts it in this bucket. Then the grantee can come in here, open up the record, see the pieces of the request that they're supposed to be editing. I'm not sure. This might be the wrong application type because I have admin wrong. And then they can. I'm looking for a specific field, which probably is not the right thing to do right now. Anyway, in the application itself, there's a field which basically says, this is what we want you to change. Please go change that. Direction back to the grantee. This is the initiation portion. I'd have to find exactly where that is on the form, but that's basically. Thought we were putting that. You know where it is? It's in the wireframe. So what we did on the wireframe is we said, okay, we're going to place on the form.
Hey, Richard.
Yes.
Richard, I think there's still some confusion.
Okay.
Yes, I'll take credit for being confused.
There are actually several people confused, so you'll have to take credit.
Thank you, Richard. I
Yes.
have a follow-up question to my original question. And maybe I'll just tell you what I'm trying to get at, and then you can tell me whether or not that would be through an email or an alert or another mechanism.
Okay.
What I'm wondering is, when an application status has been changed so that I now have to take an action, for example, the contract has now been executed, so I need to take an action to make a disbursement. Or reviewers have, there's been a final score and they're going to be funded, so now there's another action that Bobby must take, for example. Is there a place where we can see those kinds of things all in one place? It seems that in a demo that you did a long time ago, there was a tab or a record or something that we could have on our desktop that would show us things that were awaiting our approval or an action on our part. Is there such a thing?
So let me get back to the workflow because that has the most. I think so. I'm going to the change workflow because I think that's the cleanest place to. You're talking about this part of the workflow where you've gone through and you've made. So over here currently, we don't have any specific email alerts notified to go back to the grantee. On the sponsored grant workflow, we do. We don't not going back to the grantee, but we have some specific email alerts that go out at these decision points, right? So when you're expediting it, there's an email alert that's going to go out, for SPO analysis operational. We haven't defined. I know you had defined a few email to go out at the beginning of this, which is just a normal process. In the workflow so this is the application being initiated, routing down to the grantee for and coming back. This is the divisions review, moving it forward to the PL2 for review for change. We need to define if there are email alerts that happen at these workflow state changes that go back to the grantee. For instance, if you want to have a notice that, so if the division staff member wants to recommend changes to a grantee, there's probably should be an alert email notification that comes off here. That email alert notification would go to the grantee and it would show up in their inbox. That's an outside of the system message. In terms of moving it forward in the division, from the division to change, I don't know that. Sorry,
Richard.
Yeah.
Let me stop you for a second because you're not answering her question.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Richard. Let me try the question differently. At various points along the way, after certain things have happened within an application, our staff will need to take action, right?
Yes.
Is there a place to list all of the actions that we need to take? Can they be listed in one place, or do we have to go through all of the records or cards just to look to see what has been changed, what has been updated? You know, for example, if I'll call it the division and the grantee have worked together. As far as they are concerned, the application is now is ready to be reviewed by CHI. Will there be a tab or just one place that will list all of those that are now ready to be reviewed, or will we have to go through each record individually to see if they are ready to be reviewed?
Okay. So the way that is accomplished in Flux is what we would do is we would filter a card for that. So as you're going through and you're queuing things up so that they're ready for review, each of those actions should have been defined in the card itself, right? There's either a workflow state that has been triggered, or there's a field that's been checked, or a date that's been met, and you can create a card that filters down on those set of criteria. Yes.
Richard, sorry, that's not quite what she's asking either.
A task list.
Okay, this is Jonelle. I need to interrupt for a second because I'm concerned that we're 30 minutes in. What I'd like to know is, can we focus on the applicant and division experience first, and what those email and what those alerts should include, and then move into what happens from the administrative standpoint with alerts and emails?
I don't have a problem with that, Janelle. What I'd like to do is I'd like to bring this up a level because I don't think the basic question has been answered here before we get too far into the weeds, which I don't think is going to be helpful for anyone. System alerts. Does ACS understand what an application level alert is now? Is there at least a basic understanding of that? Let's start right there.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So with that being said, the real issue here is, what are we going to do about emails, and how are they going to be used within the ACS build? I think that's what we need to concentrate on first, and then we can decide how we want to organize those outgoing emails and what content those outgoing emails will contain. While I understand that there's still some significant questions here, I think our time is best spent really providing some more real understanding for ACS as to what is going to be available to you in the form of an email that's going out to one of your clients. Okay? Does anyone disagree with that?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So Richard, if we could bring this up to a much higher level, and I'd like to talk about what's available in terms of an email and how it can be formatted and how it can be scripted out to different grantees and who can be on that CC line.
Okay.
So we can get that understanding, and then we can go into the configuration details.
So there are two basic types of emails that we provide that this system will provide. There are emails that are canned emails that we will define up front and will be driven by either workflow states or specific lists that will be sent out to. The other type are in-card individual record-based emails. The system-based emails do not show up in the list in the emails component on the card itself. If I go back here really quickly, I can show you exactly what that looks like. The emails that are system-driven are configured in the admin module, and you can add to them at any time, but it's an admin person that needs to add to them. The emails that are in the cards themselves are in the emails component, which is not on that card. Darn it. Sorry, frustrating. On the cards themselves, there is the email component, which looks like this, right, in this communication tools piece. This sends in emails out for this specific record out to the grantee. This email basically uses your local desktop client, and you then send the email out, right? And that email ends up being consumed in the application itself and lives on this list of emails. Right? But that's one type of email that you have available to you at the individual record level in an ad hoc basis, on an ad hoc basis. On the default list of workflow-driven emails, we have a bunch of emails that are already defined. What we need to do is define basically like who they're going to, what their workflow action states are. These emails are typically state-driven, or you can send a bulk email to a group of users with from within a filtered card. Does that make sense to everybody, or is everybody clear on those two types of emails that we have in the system?
I'm clear.
Excuse me, Richard, I think you might need to explain to everybody what state-driven is.
Okay, so we have workflows. The system is a workflow-driven system. Every time we change workflow states from initial review to initial submission, there's a state change. And that state, that action that occurs, there are workflow buttons to move it forward or back in the workflow, and those actions are state changes. Actually, on the request card, these are the states these are the workflow states for this application, for the change grant. And each of these action buttons can have a workflow, can have an email that's associated with it. You can have multiple emails associated with it, but basically you probably only need one email that's associated with it. You can have emails that are associated with the request card, emails that are associated with the reviews, and you can have emails that are associated with payments, or you can have emails that and the reports on this list. But you can also have emails that are associated with the reports. So one of the emails that's associated with the reports is the report is due in 14 days, or another email is the report is overdue or past due by 14 days. Those are standard emails that are, well, these two are on the reports, and they're time-driven. The rest of, a lot of these other emails are state-driven. So you have a state, when you click on this promote recommendation, it's going to go to initial review, and it's going to send it can send an email at that point to whoever the designated person is for that email type.
Richard, this is Cheryl. Can those state or workflow emails be initiated within the system on an ad hoc basis, or they have to be initiated by the change in state or time?
So you can initiate an email based on a filtered card. So if I go back, and the easiest way to show you this is on the, so I can go here, right, and these cards are for requests. I can hit this gear, no, it's a bulk update is what I want to do, sorry. If I click on the, come here. If I click on this, looks like an organization tool, but it's the bulk update tool. I can send an email alert, right? So I can select one of those emails, and I can send that email specifically to everybody on this filtered list of 32, right? But it means I need to filter down the list and then have, and then bulk email send the alert to everybody on that list. It's that these emails are canned, and you can't change them at this point. It sends them directly from the back end of the system, and you don't get to see or change that email before it goes out.
So the only way to send that, the only way to send out ad hoc is through the individual record level.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Richard, this is Jonelle. I have a question for you. The canned language that Change has provided for the applicant for the division is based upon the state. However, we have fields that we need to customize. So will we be able to do that, or am I hearing you say that because we can't see it, we can't touch it, it goes out without our ability to customize? And customize by meaning, here's the name of your project, here's the city, state of your project.
So you're customizing that on the record itself, right? So for instance, we can build an email that goes out that basically takes any of these data fields and puts them in. Which in my mind, what you're saying is you would want to change the name of the project, or you would want to have specific fields in here that you're saying, okay, this field is going to be targeted for this type of email. We could do that. We just need to make sure that we have that the email that goes out that canned email body content it works with the data elements that you have on the form.
Right.
Because
so
that,
we would
you can use the form to customize it.
Okay, and that's exactly what we would want to do. We want to be able to assign that field to a field within the application, and we still want to do them in bulk, because for any one given cycle, we may have, let's say, 30 notices that are going out as fund with modifications. We don't want to do them separately or individually. We want to do bulk that then still allow us to assign a field name from the form into the email template. Is that going to be possible?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways to do this. Sort of sounds like you want to be able to have a bulk open email address, email ability. So we can certainly create a canned email that basically looks like this. Maybe has like whatever these 4 data points are, or 3 data points, right? We can create another canned email that basically says, this is insert 1, this is insert 2, this is insert 3, and the body content gets wrapped around that, and then you just select the people that email is going to be going to. It's going to be a little bit more of a customization on your configuration on your side, to make sure that you put the right data in the right places. But that would certainly give you a more free-form ad hoc email capability to each of these. But we'd have to build that on the forms themselves. Does that make sense?
I do follow you. I am driving, so if you just had a visual, I cannot see it. I just want to be sure of a couple of things. One, that is something that we'll be able to do. So Bobby, you'll need to be mindful of what that actually looks like, given that that's your role. Second, Richard, I just want to draw attention to what I did include within the chat box before I needed to leave my laptop, and that is we want email options for both our applicant and our divisions, because no one that's working on those applications will be living in flux. So last week we indicated that we wanted alerts. The template language that we provided, we listed as alerts for our division colleagues, and we'll need to change that to emails. Our request is also when we email a canned notice to the applicant that the division is copied, but also having the flexibility to email division separate from having an applicant view the email that was sent to the division. Do you follow me? It's in the chat box.
Say the last one. Okay.
Okay.
I think it sounds like in order to create I think we're going to need to test around, Bobby, with a few fields that you're going to basically use as a mail merge into a canned external email type, and those fields may be name, due date, or concept information, or whatever those fields are. Field 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But those fields will need to work within the body of that email template, and so you might want to have 1 or 2 or many email templates that are like that. But we'll have to have those data elements in the application bodies themselves, the standard forms, short and long form type.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, what you'll do then is you'll basically just click on the bulk update. You'll filter down the list to however many people you want to send it to. And you'll pick the canned email from here, right? And you will hit the send button, and that will send this email to these people when you hit that button. And the information that will be incorporated in this email will be the specific details that are that you've put in that section of email mail merge on the application form. Okay. Does that work for everybody, or do we need to have more discussion about what those pieces look like, or how many templates you want to use in that sense? Or Bobby, do you have any suggestions?
Richard, I'll leave that, as you just mentioned, to Bobby and the data weigh in, since they'll need to be comfortable with those functions.
That looked like that made sense.
I have a question. Does this mean that we need to, are we still doing some requirements gathering over this? Like, I'm not sure how we're moving from these solutions to getting it done.
So I think what we're saying, Gail, is that over here, I just bounced over to the wireframe. We're going to need to add in the emails section on the wireframe maybe 1 or 2 additional outbound canned email letter templates, and for this type of ad hoc notification. And then on the short form and the long form, we're going to have to add a section to populate those canned email templates. So
okay.
Maybe on the short form in the communications section, which is down here somewhere, we'll have to add in a section of content for email 1, email 2, email 3, and that's how you'll. So the other thing is what we might want to do is, have email 1 be for a specific function, email 2 be for a different function, email 3 be for a third function, and then you can customize the body content a little bit more for those specific reasons. I don't know what those are yet, but it's either that or it's just basically one large open text box that's gonna. And my other thought there is that after you generate that bulk email, that email is going to get sent, but it's not going to show up here. It won't show up in this list of emails. So
does it show up in the history?
Honestly, Gail, I'm going to have to check that. I think it should show up in the history, but I just don't remember seeing it.
I mean, I guess the question would be if somebody says, "Hey, I never got that notice. I never got your email." How do we go back and say, "Well, here's what we sent you"?
Yeah, it should be in the bulk history, but I will have to go back and verify that.
Okay, and then my other question is that you have assured us that when we use ad hoc emails, it'll show up under that list there. What actually shows up?
What shows up is a record of the email with a link. When you click on that link, it takes you to the documents card, and in the documents to that record in the documents card, and in that record is the email body and the attachment, and actually the full history of that email.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
So Richard,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Kirsten real quick. So in the communication tool section, it will show only those one-offs that are sent manually from the card, correct?
Right, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is Bobby. I just have a quick question, just for clarifying. Based on what we've provided as far as the language for the emails and the alerts, what is missing from there, just so that I can have an understanding of what else I need to supply? I can weigh in really quickly. Bobby, we'll need to shift all of the division alerts to division email, and we'll also need to integrate an email template. One thing we did not account for is the email language that a division would need to send to their applicant if that initial review required modification. We didn't account for that one, but we'll need to add that one. And then you'll need to differentiate between when you want to be able to send an email to an applicant where the division gets copied versus you want an email going straight to the division alone.
Gotcha. So other than that, there isn't anything that's missing.
I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to go back through and make sure that we have all of your emails accounted for in this list of emails down here. And if not, we'll have to add those. Make sure we get those added into this emails folder on the wireframe. Okay. Just to make sure, because I want to make sure we have the right language, and also on the emails that are the single one, and then there's you said there's the CC, which may be a separate one. Those may have to be two separate emails based on the way Flux is configured. Shouldn't be a big deal to create them. You just need to make sure you select the correct one, which will be a labeling issue.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Bobby Player, any thoughts? Bobby?
I'm sorry, what?
I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm thinking that we might need to have a technical discussion on these items to kind of get the rough edges smoothed out to make it a little bit easier for the group to get behind some of these items. I think that some of the technical details aren't well served in this discussion right now, and I think what people here really are interested in is the process.
You mean a technical discussion amongst yourselves?
No, with your technical. Yeah, with ACS and IN, just the technical people who understand the underpinnings of what's going on with Outlook, what liquid code really means, and those type of things. I just don't think a lot of those details are well served here right now.
And Bobby, once you have that technical conversation, which would not include me, would I be able to then, once that technical discussion is complete, actually see this occur so that when Richard, for example, walks through, I'm actually seeing a demo of when you click this button and you click this button, this is the email that is going to be generated. Is that going to happen at some point?
Yes, it will, but unfortunately, it will not be able to happen in the next 10 business days because we're going to need to actually build out the functionality and perform some level of testing, but we will show it to you and we will allow you to adjust it during the adjustment phases that we have built into the process.
Okay, and I'm very comfortable with that if I have reassurance that you all have our language, and when we see in 10 days or however many, when we actually see it, we will actually see our language, the language that's been submitted, and not something else.
So Jonelle, I think this goes back. Jonelle, I think this goes back to when we talked last week about identifying someone in each of your areas to partner with Kirsten and Tony to kind of do a QA before IN actually presents. So I'm not sure if that person on your team will now be Sheen or who that person will be, but they should be able to confirm that before it's presented.
Okay, but Kenita, what I'm really emphasizing here, and I don't mean to get too far into the weeds with this conversation, Richard, we have had a little history where once we turn something over, the language that we turn over is not the language that gets used. So I just want to confirm that when you do the build, that you will be using the language that we finalize and confirm for the change grant emails and alerts.
Yeah. So, Janelle, I feel your pain on this one, and that's kind of why we went to the wireframe. What I would suggest is that what I'll do is I will put the placeholders I will put the email placeholders in the emails folder in the wireframe, and I will build into the communications tool portion of the wireframe the data elements that I'm thinking about in order to insert into your standard email. If you can then provide any additional content to those emails in the wireframe, I'll make sure that we build specifically to the wireframe. Right?
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. And for Bobby Bones says what might be helpful to give Richard reassurance that we need to align with the fields in the form. You may want to make sure that the information that we have, the customized sections, are identical to the labels that he has on the application form.
And any additional information needs to come through me and CC Tony and Kirsten, and I get it over to Bobby Player.
So
I just want to clarify, because I thought what I just heard was that it goes into the wireframe. So are we putting it in the wireframe or turning it over to you?
If you put it in the wireframe, then Bobby and Kenita will get it on their configuration meetings, which will then get back to me. Right, Kenita?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So are there any other questions on where we're going right now on emails and alerts? I don't know that there's much that we can do for alerts. But
we've covered a lot around the workflow process for change. I want to make sure that on the workflow process for SPO, we've captured what we need, and I don't know how to go about that other than walking through where we gave you that information.
Okay. Let's go back to the change, not the form, but the workflow.
Gail, excuse me, Richard. Gail, this is Bobby. Is there a specific question that SPO has in terms of email and alerts that they wish to address, or because I don't think that going back through the entire flow is really going to be a productive use of the next half hour.
Well, two things. One is that I've had this kind of recurring question around the communication that's going to take place internally when it goes from the opportunity stage to the approved and rejected stage, and I don't think that's been resolved.
Okay, if I could ask the question, when you say communication, are you talking about email communication, alerts, or are you talking about the actual process itself? Those are three different things.
Exactly, and I haven't. We're only finding that out on Friday, so that's why I want to make sure I understand what we've told you and whether it is what you're going to do.
Okay, then what I would suggest is that we take that conversation to another meeting, and we sit down and we explain this flow specifically to you and whatever other SPO members that have a specific question concerning that, because I'd like to keep this meeting about the emails and alerts, because I want to be able to implement emails and alerts effectively. But I need to understand everything that everyone on ACS's side needs in reference specifically to emails and alerts they are expecting to see on screen.
Well, that's what I was asking for. How do you want to spend the next 20 minutes?
I would like to know from anyone else on the call right now. Emails and alerts. We've explained to you what the alerts are within the application. We've heard from Janelle's side in terms of what their expectations are in terms of an email response that goes out to a grantee. What I haven't heard is from Global, and I haven't heard from SPO what their expectations are in terms of an email communication to another party.
Bobby, that's what I'm asking for. So I was starting off the next step with the same way that I started the change discussion.
Okay.
I initiated that by saying, show me what the grantee sees and doesn't see. So if you would mind going back, doing it the same way you just did it with
Okay. So from the SPO perspective, on an opportunity grant, right? You're basically working from this view. You have an opportunity grant, which we will rename these cards, obviously. But when something changes, right, internally on this grant, you're going to get, no, that's not, I won't do that. You're going to get an alert at the top of the screen, and you're going to get alert on the card itself. Let's finish doing its thing. Right, so there's alert up to the top, alert here, alert there. Right? Dale, what you have for SPO is you will have filtered dashboards that only have things that are within your workflow. So if you look at the sponsored opportunity workflow, demand management has, when there's a change for a record that's filtered for demand management for an initial bore, or when you're going through and changing the state or adding additional comments here, on the card that's filtered for these activities, you will see that red dot icon light up. Knox dashboard is slightly different. He has a set of filters for inbound analysis, for decision making, and for looking at the analysis done by the internal SPO analyst.
Hey, Richard, what are you displaying now? Just want to make sure our screen is keeping up with you.
Sure. What I'm displaying now is the opportunity workflow, which starts at a bore and ends up goes through the proposal process for SPO.
Okay.
And then that goes into a completed grant, and then gets sub-awarded, et cetera.
We're on it.
All right, some of us were a little behind. We're good.
I'm sorry. So the difference between what we're doing in SPO at this point and what we're doing in CHI is, early on we had defined some pre-filtered dashboards for SPO, which basically take the workflow or take the functions, the applications, and kind of cull them down into filtered cards, so that you're only going to see things that are in these three stages. For instance, demand management will see things that are one card that has these three things on them, and then a second card that has information that's come back ready for an opportunity review from NOC. And we will get there with CHI and Global in terms of helping you configure your dashboards. But we did that early as really more of a training exercise for SPO, or for the SPO office. Anyway, so on those cards, you only see alerts for the records that are updated within your card. If you have a complete open card, which is what this one is, there are only 32 records that have this BOR assigned to them right now. Right? If you created another one, this card is not filtered, so it's going to see everything. If I were to filter this card down, say to just everything that was amounts requested was above $30,000, maybe I would have 15 records, and I would only see those 15 records, any updates to just those 15 records. That's announcements. Well, that's alerts. So what I would recommend on the SPO side is have one card open that has all opportunity requests in it, and then I'd have other filtered dashboards that are that help you manage the workload within those groups. From an email standpoint, you have the same ability, although it would probably less likely to do that. You would be able to filter down the card to, so there's nothing filtered down as new. Let's go initial review. Are you there? No. How about BOR initial review? So you filter down the card. There you go. So now we filtered down this card to just two records within this, and we would call this BOR initial review. If we wanted to update or send a bulk email, we could do the same thing by clicking on this icon here. And
hey, Richard, we're a little behind.
Yes.
We're a little behind. Our screen is behind.
Okay. Let me slow down a little bit. So you can filter down a card. Right? The filtered card, if it contains, if the records on that filtered card
it's still not showing. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep interrupting you, but it's not updating.
We're still on the workflow.
Okay.
That's been for about 5 minutes, I guess.
Let's see.
Okay. New work. Is that what you want?
Okay. So there's a filtered card. You can see the filtered card there?
Kim's house? That's the card we're seeing is Kim's house.
Kim's house, yes. The card to the right of the Kim's house is BOR.
Okay.
And that card is now filtered. I've filtered that card down to just 2 records. Do you see that?
No, it's blank.
Oh, now it is. Now they're there.
Yeah, there's a bit. I don't know why there's such a lag. So basically, from when you filter down a card to this level, what you have the ability to do is to also do a bulk update and send an email to these, a canned email to this for these two records. I don't know that it would be as appropriate for SPO to do that on these types of grants, but the ability is there. And if we wanted to do the same thing, we could do an ad hoc email kind of template on the and add the same data fields in the communications component to populate an ad hoc email. But on the BORs, you have the ability to send email notifications individually. That's down in the communications section of the card. That's an email notification that's driven specifically in an ad hoc basis. The other thing that we have going on, and more of going on the opportunity grants, are when workflow states change. We have canned emails that go out based on those action changes. So when you click on the button, on the green button, the green workflow buttons at the bottom of the card that say advance to review or reject, you'll have workflow changes. You'll have a change in the workflow for that record, and in some cases you have automatic emails that are generated based on those state changes.
What if we don't want automated emails to be generated?
If you don't want automatic emails to be generated, then we would turn off that email at that stage. Or we would just not build the automatic email.
And can that be done at a specific card level or application type? Or is that an all or nothing thing?
Turning on the automatic alerts is an all or nothing thing. What I would suggest, though, is if you want to, if you want the ability to turn them off or on, I would suggest turning them off and then bulk updating them to send the automatic notification out. Right. So can you see the bulk update screen?
Mhm.
Not yet.
And you see, okay. So if you see the bulk update, when you see the bulk update screen, there's also the send email alert. I can turn off any one of these emails that are in this list as an automated alert. So it won't automatically send it, but I can select any one of them and then send the update alert from the bulk announcements, from the bulk update. Can you see that?
Yeah.
I can. Thank you.
Okay.
Question?
So is Spo's preference to have the alerts be manually, the email alert or email notifications to be manually triggered?
Yes.
Because if it is, then we'll use the bulk update method.
Yeah, well, we did provide some comments to Tony about some of those emails. We didn't feel we really even needed some of them at all. But then I guess if we have this option to turn some off and on, then, that would be helpful to have that flexibility. When you say turn them off and on, is that something we can do?
It's certainly something that the admin can do. What I'd recommend is that you turn them all off, and then you just use the bulk update feature to send the notification at the point that you want to send it. You'll still be sending the same canned email. You'll still have the same message in it, same content. The question is, when do you want to send it? When you do it from the workflow state, you click on the button and it automatically sends it associated with that workflow state. If you do it this way, you want to be on that state when you're making that that change. The other thing that you can do is you can do both things. You can do two things together, right? So potentially, and this is a training issue, and I'm not sure that really it's a process that will necessarily work for the opportunity grants, but you have the ability to bulk update the status and send the notification at the same time. So if you have 15 or 20 applications that you're ready to make the notification on, you can have an award notification email, and you have an award notification canned email that's sitting in the list of available emails. but you don't turn it on to be state-driven. You just leave it in the bin to be initiated from whenever you want it. And then what you could do is you change the status from the vault update, and you select the email that goes along with it, and the two happen together. And that's the way of enforcing that. You've got basically the same action for state-driven. Make sense? Any questions?
Yeah, just a second.
I guess
Well, we'll provide training. We'll provide you training.
Okay, yeah, okay, all right.
So do you want to go with turning it off and then using the bulk update feature?
I think I'd have to go back through them to see. There might be some we might want to just keep on. I'd have to go back through them again. Now that I know we have this option.
So Knock, remember when we were doing testing for UAT and Gail said, "Oh, I want to get email notifications. I want to see the email notifications coming through when the state's changed." And we said, "Okay," and we turned them on. We stuck the alerts on, and then Gail started getting flooded with all of the notifications. Like, oh, man, another one's changed. And that was just testing and records going on. That's kind of the issue that you start running into with the automated alerts. If you,
and that's
program
why
it out.
In our comments to Tony, some of them we felt we didn't really need them at all, period.
Okay.
But others, we said, okay, well, that might work. And now the question is whether or not to just turn it off and then turn it on when we need it. So I'd have to go back and take a look.
So, Bobby, how soon do you need a definitive answer on that?
Well, can't we turn it off and on?
So no, I would say you would the alerts would be enabled, but they would not be workflow driven. If they're not workflow driven, then they're not going to run until you initiate them.
Right, but I guess what I'm asking isn't that something we can do later, whether they're on or off, and decide whether or not to turn them off or on?
You can. So yes, you can turn them on, or you can enable them and turn them off later on. But it's done in the admin panel, where only admins will be turning them on and off.
Yeah.
It's not a feature that everybody is going to have access to.
Right.
But you can certainly do it.
Excuse me. So, Richard, essentially the answer to this question is that the infrastructure is going to be built into the ACS build to allow ACS administrators to configure this once they've been properly trained.
So do we have any other questions about SPO? So can we use the last few minutes to go through global? Is Justine still on?
I'm here.
Okay.
Justine, are there any specific areas of email notifications or that you guys require outside of the individual ad hoc emails off of the application?
No, I don't think so. I think as long as what I could see based on what is available on the ad hoc, that we can send out the announcement and notify grantees of being accepted or declined, of course, for major. Internally, we don't need quite as much because we don't work as heavily with the divisions, and I believe, I know looking at SPO for the board process, we wouldn't have notifications as much in there for most of our projects. And again, this all depends on where our funds are coming from. But from everything I've seen, I think that meets us there. I'm interested in the alerts, how they work on the post side during the monitoring and reporting, but that might be a different kind of meeting.
Okay. So
Yeah, Justin, you raised a good point. This is, Richard, I'm sorry, just one thing, because I think it ties back into Kim's original question. We also need to talk about the alerts that we receive from the grant recipient. So the alerts that the program leads, PL1, PL2, will receive in the event that we're not living in flux and we're not tied to those alerts that are coming in that way. So perhaps maybe we discuss offline what we think our needs are, and then you let us know if those are feasible. Would that work?
Sure. If you just put them in as, if you have specific inbound email notification requests based on based on your reports, just add those to the list of canned emails, and we'll stick them into the emails bucket in the wireframe.
Okay, so just so that we're. Go ahead, Justine.
Okay, I that sounds clear to me, but I just want to say it out as how I would see it, so I make sure that I'm clear. So basically, if we plug in our deadlines for reporting, and that at that time we could also plug in the alerts for when, say, if it was a month before that deadline or for a particular grant, that would be plugged in for our admin to see and for the grantee to see. Be separate or all at once? Because we need to be reminded too at times, and then we also need to remind our partners.
I'm assuming the question's for me.
Yes, I am. So I'm just want to reconfirm how the alert works. If on the reporting side, if you said that we can plug in the reporting deadlines, and that then we can plug in an alert for those deadlines, and that the grantee and the admin gets these alerts.
So
I'm just trying to picture how we see the alert versus how the grantee sees the alert, and how we manage that from the reporting side.
Okay. So just quickly on the application, and I'm just kind of pulling up the applications and the reports themselves, right? So on the wrong card type, not this card type. Can you guys see my screen? And of course, I've got the wrong application type. What I'm looking for is something that has a maybe an unfiltered board would have the reports on it. Yes, this one has the reports on it. Sources. Come on. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to create an email for the principal point of contact on the grants, so that when the grantee submits their report, and the workflow changes to submitted, or the workflow will change to report received, because it will be first new, then it will go to report received. Once it goes to report received, then an email will be triggered to go to the program manager or the PL1, PL2 for that specific grant, letting them know that there's an email, that the report's been added to the system. Does that make sense? That sounds like to me what you
I think that I'm assuming what I'm asking kind of just happens when we're plugging in the information for the reporting, but that I think for just functionally what we really want to make sure that was the one thing we wanted out of alerts in the system was that when if we're busy and working, that we're also somehow alerted that we are coming up on a time where either a grantee needs payment or they need to be submitting information to us. And so that's happening in some way, shape, or form. And it sounds like it is. I'm not quite seeing it explicitly, but I think it might be hard to put an example here. But that's a general function, right?
Okay. Sounds like we need two or three additional email alert types or email notification types. A couple for inbound reports back to the program staff. One for a report's been submitted. Another one for there's a report that's due, that's pending, and that's very similar to the report to the email that goes to the grantee saying the report's due in 14 days.
Right. So is alert versus reminder, or kind of, are they supposed to be meant to be the same?
Yeah, I would think of alerts as just being in-system notices. I think of reminders or emails basically being extensions that are thrown outside of the system to your to whatever other mechanism that you're monitoring.
Got it. Okay.
So
I'm
thinking is, so I'm thinking that you'd need a report is due in 14 days or whatever, or report is past due, you've got to get on it, announcement or reminder, and then you would have a payment is due or payment is pending, the same kind of things, but notices to the program staff rather than to the grantee. I think the ones that are to the grantee are already there.
And is this something that I should write out explicitly?
You know what, if you could write it out and stick it in the wireframe, that would be fantastic. It gives me the ability to say this is exactly what you want.
Because it can vary by grant, obviously, what the timeline is and when something's due, but in general, there's at least, at one point, probably like a month or 6 weeks before the dates that are set in for either payment or reports, we should have some kind of cycle of reminders occurring.
Okay.
And so I'm meeting with Jackie sometime this week. She'll be in DC, and so we'll try to flesh that out a little bit more so it's clear.
Okay. When you say a cycle of reminders,
Richard, just one quick question, consideration. Because CHI or change, we would need the same type of prompts. Justine, I'm wondering if the solution to not knowing exactly what the date will be, because all of those dates will be driven by the project timeline, I'm wondering if the solution is just on the front end to give the logic behind it. So 4 weeks before a payment is due, we want the alert. 4 weeks before the project report is due, the program staff needs the alert. That could be a potential solution, but I also just want to put a plug in that as you and Jackie are working on those reminders that will be for program staff, perhaps we can look at what your language is, because I suspect it will be similar so that we don't have two separate messaging requests.
Yeah, no, I think it could basically be the same, exactly like you said. Just we put a set time that we all can agree on. That would be a good reminder time before whatever the date that was set in as a deadline. I just feel like in this conversation maybe I need to write it down.
Yeah, me too.
That makes sense. And especially if it varies, if we plug in quarterly versus interim, that still would be like 4 weeks before that date. And so, yeah, I think that will be perfect, and it seems like something we all need.
All right, so we are about 5 minutes over now, and sounds like we've covered emails and alerts for CHI, SPO, and Global. If there are any additional questions, please reach out to me, send me an email, copy Tony and Kirsten, and we'll get that over to IN. Is there any other immediate discussion needed? Okay, otherwise we're adjourned. Thank you.
Okay, go to Bill. Thank you, everybody.